In life, we all encounter people who seem to have the ability to achieve everything they desire. It could be a luxurious car, a new, spacious home, or a rapidly advancing career. Every time they set a goal, it seems as if the universe conspires to help them achieve it. These individuals always exude a sense of calm and determination, despite the turbulence around them. And, like most of us, you may find yourself feeling a bit unsettled or even envious, wondering how they manage to get what they want so effortlessly. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This statement holds the key to unlocking the secret behind these individuals' success. They are not in a hurry, nor do they worry about the outcome. Instead, they understand that to achieve something truly valuable, the most important factor is not merely wanting it, but mastering self-control, adjusting their mindset, and aligning their actions every day. When you relax and clear your mind, you not only gain clarity on the path ahead, but also naturally manifest the things you desire. In today's video, we will explore this secret through the lens of Stoic philosophy. Number 1. The power of calm. Calmness is not emotional paralysis or the absence of feelings. Rather, it is the ability to maintain clarity and control over emotions in the most stressful and difficult situations. In life, we often face sudden challenges and situations beyond our control, and in those moments, calmness is the most powerful weapon we can possess. When our minds are still, free from negative emotions and anxiety, we can perceive problems rationally, take control of the situation, and make sound decisions. It is in moments of calmness that we can create the greatest change. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. The Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us that worry and fear often stem from our own imagination rather than reality. In truth, when we face challenges, we can handle them with resilience if we remain calm. However, if we allow our imagination to take over, we can easily be swept into a storm of emotions, creating problems that never actually existed, thereby paralyzing our ability to make clear decisions. This proves that in life, calmness is an essential factor that prevents us from being led by emotions and helps us view situations more rationally. A prime example of the power of calmness is the story of Chesley Sully Sullenberger, the captain of US Airways Flight 1549. On January 15, 2009, his plane suffered engine failure due to a bird strike just minutes after takeoff. In a high-stress situation where every decision could determine the fate of 155 passengers and crew members, Sully remained composed. He did not allow panic to take over his mind. Instead, he quickly assessed the situation and made the critical decision to execute an emergency landing on the Hudson River. Thanks to his calmness and ability to regulate his emotions, Sully saved everyone on board. Had he panicked, had he failed to maintain his composure in that moment, the outcome could have been drastically different. Sully's story is not just an example of remaining calm in an emergency, but also a lesson in emotional and mental control during difficult situations. When we are calm, we can observe and analyze situations more clearly. On the other hand, panic and uncontrolled emotions can cloud our judgment and hinder sound decision-making. Stoicism, a philosophy of life, teaches us that negative emotions are not something to be eliminated, but rather something to be managed. Calmness in Stoicism is not about emotional detachment or suppression, but about mastering our emotions, knowing when to let them guide us and when to prioritize reason. Stoicism emphasizes that while we cannot control everything in life, we can control how we react to it. One of its key principles is that we cannot govern external events, but we can always govern our own responses and attitudes. Throughout life, we will encounter failure, suffering, and challenges. But rather than allowing negative emotions to take over, calmness helps us see the path forward. We can learn to acknowledge our emotions without being controlled by them. This not only aids us in making wise decisions, but also fosters self-respect and inner strength. When the mind is at peace, our capacity to handle adversity becomes limitless. As Seneca said, many of our fears and anxieties exist only in our minds and never happen in reality. When we maintain a calm mindset, we realize that the obstacles before us are not insurmountable. This calmness allows us to manifest the life we desire. Calmness is not just a temporary reaction, it is a strategic choice in life. When we learn to regulate our emotions and maintain composure, we not only take charge of situations, but also unlock the potential to achieve great things. Calmness is the key that opens the door to endless possibilities on the journey of life. Number 2, let everything flow naturally. Wouldn't it be wonderful to feel like you were living life in a state of flow? How amazing would it be if everything just unfolded effortlessly, with minimal effort on your part? Imagine the peace, joy, and gratitude that come with such a life. Picture it for a moment. Soak in that feeling of grace, ease, and fluidity. Now, take a look at your current life. Does it flow? Is it filled with ease and grace? For many of us, the answer is no. Many of us are pushing, forcing, and trying too hard, which can lead to frustration, resentment, burnout, and more. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can create more ease and flow in your life. I speak from experience, and I'd love to share some tips with you. Stoicism teaches that to live a happy and peaceful life, we must learn to let go. But letting go doesn't mean giving up entirely or not caring about the things in our lives. In fact, it means accepting that not everything is within our control. We cannot control every situation, every person, or every outcome, and this is an essential part of life. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius's quote reminds us that our lives are not dictated by external events, but by how we perceive them. Negative thoughts, worries, or fears can create a life full of suffering, even when reality isn't so bad. On the other hand, when we adjust our thinking, view things positively, and stay resilient, our lives become more peaceful and meaningful. This quote encourages us to recognize that pain and worry mainly stem from our own thoughts. You've probably experienced moments when you tried to control everything, only for things to go differently than expected. Do you remember how that felt? That feeling when the harder you tried, the more things seemed to fall apart. That is when you need to learn to let go, not to give up, but to release control and allow things to unfold naturally. Take a look at the life of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before becoming a globally famous writer, she faced many failures. Publishers rejected her manuscript multiple times, and for some, this might have been a reason to abandon their dreams. But J.K. Rowling didn't give up. She understood that part of success is accepting that not everything will go according to plan. She couldn't control whether publishers accepted her work, but she persisted, kept writing, and ultimately achieved phenomenal success. This acceptance is the key. When we let go of our expectations of how things should happen, we create space for new opportunities to emerge. When we stop forcing things to happen, we can recognize opportunities we might have otherwise overlooked. So, how do you start letting go? The answer is to look at the things you cannot control and, instead of trying to change them, learn to accept them and shift your attitude. When you do this, you will feel lighter, and your life will begin to flow more naturally. You will no longer feel exhausted from struggling against things beyond your control. And from there, you'll start to notice the opportunities the universe is sending your way. Let me share with you a fascinating and powerful concept, the law of attraction. This is the key to manifesting good things in your life. Don't miss the next part of this article, where I will explain how the law of attraction works and how you can use it to create change in your life. Number 3, the power of the law of attraction. At this very moment, your life is being guided and influenced by cosmic forces that you may not even be aware of, and the most powerful of all is the law of attraction. Just like the gravitational pull of the Earth, it is always in effect, impacting your life in more ways than you can imagine. The good news is that once you become aware of this universal law, you can learn how to use it to change your life for the better. Because the truth is that you are in a constant state of creation. Every moment of every day, you are actively creating your reality. With every thought, whether conscious or unconscious, you are shaping your future. When you understand how to harness the power of the law of attraction in your life, you can direct your thoughts and actions in a way that allows you to effortlessly attract what you desire. Right now, you might be thinking, wait, is the law of attraction real? If you're still skeptical, consider the good things you already have in your life. Everything you currently have, whether big or small, is the result of your past thoughts and emotions. According to the principle of like attracts like, when you maintain a positive attitude, you attract even more positivity into your life. Gratitude is the key to unlocking opportunities, success, and prosperity. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Epictetus. Epictetus' famous quote highlights that true wealth is not about owning more material things, but about being grateful and content with what you already have. This is the foundation of the law of attraction. When you appreciate what you have, you not only maintain a positive state, but also create space for new blessings. This concept is clearly demonstrated in the story of Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, one of the world's most famous comedic actors, is a living example of the power of the law of attraction. Before he achieved his dazzling career and fame, Jim Carrey envisioned a successful future and started his journey by writing himself a check for $10 million with the note, "For acting services rendered." He kept the check in his wallet and, every day, focused on visualizing himself receiving that amount. At the time, he was still unknown and struggling in his career, yet he always expressed gratitude for what he had and believed in the manifestation of great things. And then, a few years later, something miraculous happened. He received a $10 million paycheck for the movie Dumb and Dumber, officially launching him to the peak of his career. Jim Carrey's story is not just a coincidence, it is a clear testament that when you maintain a positive and grateful mindset, you attract more good things into your life. More importantly, when you view everything in your life with gratitude, you not only attract success, but also develop inner strength and self-worth. Just as Epictetus said, when you are content with what you have, you create a life rich in both spirit and material wealth. Remember, you are always in a state of creation. Every thought you have is shaping your reality. Start today by cultivating gratitude, shifting your thoughts, and transforming your mindset to attract everything you desire. Are you ready to change your life? Leave a comment below this video and share your thoughts on the power of the law of attraction in your life. Let us know how you plan to apply the law of attraction to achieve what you want. Number 4. Attention is present and prosperity. In today's society, we tend to be overly biased toward financial wealth. Wealth is often equated with money, even though there are many different forms of abundance. However, one crucial yet often overlooked factor in building true prosperity is mindfulness, the ability to be fully present. When we live completely in the present moment, we not only enhance our work performance, but also unlock the doors to a life rich in mental well-being, health, and happiness. From this perspective, mindfulness does not just help us live in the moment, it also allows us to reduce unnecessary desires, leading to a sense of inner peace and true prosperity in life. When we can focus on the present, we gain greater control over our emotions and actions. This opens up a world where decisions are made with clarity rather than anxiety, and every moment is lived fully. A perfect example of the power of mindfulness is the story of Anna, a talented interior designer who often found herself overwhelmed by work-related stress. Anna constantly worried about her projects. She feared that her clients might not be satisfied with her designs, or that her creative ideas were not unique enough. This anxiety caused her to lose focus and fall into a state of exhaustion. However, one day, Anna decided to try practicing mindfulness. Every morning, she spent 10 minutes focusing on her breath, feeling each inhale and exhale, and gradually integrating this awareness into her work. She stopped worrying about the final outcome and instead immersed herself in the smallest details of her designs, from the lighting and colors to the overall harmony of the space. With this level of focus and attention, Anna's designs became sharper and more creative. Her clients were not only satisfied, but also deeply impressed, bringing her both professional success and mental fulfillment. Through mindfulness, Anna not only created exceptional work, but also discovered a sense of inner peace, simply by learning to live fully in the present moment. This is a clear demonstration that mindfulness can lead to prosperity, not just in our professional lives, but also in our daily experiences. To truly achieve the things we desire, we must first develop the ability to live fully in each present moment. This not only makes us more effective in our work, but also helps us build a rich and fulfilling life, not just in terms of financial success, but also in mental and emotional well-being. Thank you for joining us on this journey so far. Your engagement truly helps spread this message, and together, we can make a significant impact, one smile at a time. And hey, are you thinking about clicking away? No way, that would be a big mistake. The content I'm about to reveal next is even more groundbreaking. Trust me, you'll want to stay because we're just getting to the best part. You won't believe what's coming next. These are secrets that could truly change your life. So, stay tuned. We're about to take things to a whole new level. Number 5. The importance of sleep and dreams. Scientists have studied dreams for decades in an attempt to fully understand the dream state. What they have discovered is that dreams do not exist merely for entertainment while you rest. They serve a much greater purpose. Sleep is not just a time for the body to recover. It is also a precious moment for our minds to regenerate, process information, and establish new goals. It is a time when what seems incomprehensible in a wakeful state can take shape, and hidden creative ideas can emerge into reality. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This statement affirms that peace and success in life do not come from external factors, but from our own thoughts and inner desires. Dreams, much like the deep-seated wishes of our subconscious, are not always clear and easy to understand, but they can help us recognize the things we truly long for in life. Through dreams, we can find guidance for future decisions and actions, just as Marcus Aurelius taught that true happiness lies in mastering our inner thoughts. Consider Thomas Edison, who discovered how to harness sleep to enhance his creativity. Edison was a famous inventor, but few people know that he had a unique relationship with sleep. He did not see sleep merely as a time to rest, but as a tool for creativity. Edison frequently took short naps throughout the day, holding a coin in his hand. As he fell into deep sleep, the coin would drop to the ground and wake him up. This was his way of transitioning his mind from a wakeful state to a subconscious state, where creative ideas could flourish. Edison's approach to sleep demonstrates that when the body is relaxed, the mind can connect with creative energy that is often inaccessible during wakeful hours. Dreams do not merely reflect our daily thoughts, they also help us solve problems that remain unresolved while we are awake. Creative ideas can arise in moments when we believe we are just resting, but in reality, we are moving closer to the truth within ourselves. When the body is at rest, the mind can uncover solutions to questions that we may not even be consciously aware of. Dreams, with all their mystery and randomness, may be a way for the mind to provide the answers we need. This concept does not only apply to creative individuals like Edison, but to all of us. Dreams act as a bridge between the present and the future, where our deepest desires can take form. If you can connect what you dream about to your real-life aspirations, you may be able to see more clearly the paths that lead to your goals. Of course, sleep is not always easy to achieve, especially in modern society, where stress and anxiety can make it difficult to fall asleep. However, understanding the importance of sleep and dreams can be a motivation to change habits and take better care of yourself. When you allow yourself to rest fully, you are not only restoring your body, but also rejuvenating your mind and reconnecting with your deepest desires. Dreams are a gift from both the body and mind, helping you understand yourself better and recognize what you truly want. When you learn to accept and understand your dreams, you will find it easier to manifest everything you desire because you have prepared yourself physically and mentally to welcome the wonderful things that life has to offer. Number 6. The power of morning. Morning habits play a crucial role in shaping the trajectory of our day. This is the most important period, determining our energy, mood, and overall performance. As we step out of bed, it's not just our bodies but also our minds that embark on a new journey. The morning is a blank canvas, and how we choose to write on it can significantly influence our lives and the decisions we make throughout the day. Many people believe that success is linked to waking up early and starting the day with energetic activities. However, in reality, understanding our own body and mind is the deciding factor. Each person has a unique biological rhythm, and starting the day in a way that aligns with this rhythm is essential. Instead of succumbing to the pressure of waking up early just to follow the success model, listen to your body and create a morning routine that makes you feel comfortable, energized, and ready to take on any challenge. One of the simplest yet most powerful morning habits is meditation. Taking a few quiet moments in the morning helps clear our minds of stress and anxiety, creating space to focus on what truly matters. Just a few minutes of deep breathing and self-reflection can help us start the day with peace and confidence. This is crucial because it reduces stress and keeps our minds clear, allowing us to make wiser decisions throughout the day. Morning exercise is another excellent habit to kickstart the day. It doesn't have to be an intense gym workout. Even light activities like yoga, walking, or cycling can be beneficial. These activities not only improve physical health, but also enhance alertness and energy levels for the rest of the day. When we move our bodies, endorphins are released, lifting our mood and creating a sense of enthusiasm. Thus, starting the morning with light exercise not only strengthens our bodies, but also mentally prepares us to face challenges. A notable example of a successful morning routine is former US President Barack Obama. He placed great importance on his morning habits. Before starting work, Obama dedicated time to exercising and relaxing his mind. He often began his day with light workouts and spent a few moments reflecting on important issues in life. He shared that these quiet mornings not only helped him maintain his health, but also allowed him to plan and think clearly about the decisions he needed to make. These mornings even helped him stay calm and confident when dealing with challenges throughout the day. Ultimately, there is no universal formula for creating the perfect morning routine. Everyone can choose activities that suit them best to start the day with energy and purpose. It could be a quiet cup of coffee, a light workout, or a few minutes of meditation to mentally prepare. The key is to develop habits that bring peace, focus, and readiness to tackle the day ahead. Finally, I encourage you to create your own morning routine. Listen to your body and mind. Choose the activities that help you start the day positively and see how they impact your life. If you already have a morning habit that contributes to your success, don't hesitate to share it with me and the community. Together, we can learn and grow. Share your thoughts in the comments below this video. Do you have a special morning habit that makes you feel energized and confident? Let us know, and let's create mornings filled with energy and purpose together. Number 7. Visualize and create. Imagine a tiny seed. If you plant it in the soil, water it, and take care of it properly, one day it will sprout, rise above the ground, and provide shade for the entire garden. Our lives are much the same as that very seed. Everything you desire begins with a clear vision of the future that you create for yourself. When you can vividly imagine what you long for, you are planting the seeds for opportunities and positive actions in your life. Imagination is the key to unlocking doors to opportunities and success. It is not just a simple technique, but an essential part of building the life you dream of. When you can clearly visualize what you want, you begin to create an invisible force of attraction that draws in opportunities, people, and circumstances that align with your goals. This is not magic or mysticism, but a combination of mindset and intentional action. One of the reasons imagination can bring about significant change in life is that it helps generate positive energy. When you clearly envision what you desire, you start living in a state of readiness to receive and attract good things. This energy not only helps you maintain patience and focus, but also enables you to overcome challenges in life. Think about your desire to improve your health. A person may start by visualizing a strong, energetic body and asking themselves, how can this become a reality? They not only see their ideal physique, but also imagine the journey to achieving it, from regular exercise to healthy eating. This visualization fuels their motivation each day, and that very motivation becomes the driving force that helps them push past moments of laziness or hardship. The same applies to personal relationships. Imagine a life filled with harmony, love, and understanding with your family or friends. When you can envision such an outcome, you naturally cultivate a sense of peace, making it easier to take actions that strengthen those relationships. This creates space for mutual understanding, and you will find yourself acting more kindly, fostering deeper connections. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This quote emphasizes that imagination and positive thinking are the foundation of all actions in life. If you focus on good things and the life you desire, you will naturally take steps toward achieving them. Stoic philosophy teaches that controlling and maintaining a stable, positive mind is a key factor in attaining happiness and success. Imagination is a crucial part of this process. When you can visualize the future clearly and positively, you will make significant changes in your actions and decisions, thereby attracting the opportunities you seek. Imagination is not just a mental exercise, it is an indispensable part of shaping the life you want. When you vividly imagine your goals, you generate positive energy that attracts corresponding opportunities. In doing so, you are not only building your future, but also shaping the person you aspire to become. And as Marcus Aurelius emphasized, the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. Start with small visions and reach for greatness in life. Number 8. Be silent and connect with the universe. Silence is not simply the absence of sound. It is a mental space where we can connect with ourselves and open our hearts to receive the messages the universe sends us. In today's chaotic world, where thousands of pieces of information flood in every day, people often feel lost, exhausted, and directionless. At such times, silence becomes a means of finding inner peace and restoring balance, helping us recognize important guidance from within and from the universe. Silence is not about escaping life, but about gaining a clearer perspective on what truly matters. When we pause the noise around us, we can hear our inner voice and understand our desires, goals, and true passions more clearly. This is precisely what Stoicism, the philosophy of patience and self-control, teaches us. In moments of silence, we can find the strength to face challenges and realize the grandeur of life. A clear example of the power of silence in connecting with the universe is Albert Einstein. He is known not only for his groundbreaking discoveries, but also for how he sought silence in his life. Einstein did not just devote time to research, but also valued moments of solitude, where he could reflect and explore scientific theories in silence. He often took long walks in nature to embrace tranquility and allow new ideas to emerge in his mind. As he once said, "I am not very smart. I just spend more time thinking about the questions that others ignore." This is a vivid testament to the magic of silence in connecting humans with the universe. Through stillness, Einstein was able to listen to new discoveries, leading to groundbreaking scientific advancements. It was not merely the silence of speech, but the silence of the mind, where all worries and distractions were set aside, making way for great innovations and ideas. So, why is silence necessary to connect with the universe? Silence allows us to pause, reflect, and listen to ourselves. In those moments, we are not influenced by external factors or caught up in endless races. Silence helps us see our goals, dreams, and the path we truly want to take more clearly. It is not just about stopping the noise, but about creating space for new ideas and opportunities we may have never noticed before. By practicing silence, we actively manifest everything we desire. When the mind is at peace, every decision in life becomes clearer. No longer reacting impulsively or worrying unnecessarily, we make well-considered choices that align with our true nature and life purpose. With every moment of stillness, we not only connect with ourselves, but also open our souls to recognize the universe's signals. We stop worrying about things beyond our control and instead learn to live in harmony with everything around us. In this way, every day, every second of silence becomes an opportunity for us to manifest everything we desire, from inner peace to success in the external world. So, are you ready to listen to the universe? Silence is not surrender, it is rebirth. Silence is the first step toward opening the door to true freedom and success. With patience and deep listening, we will find the path to the incredible things the universe has already prepared for us. Finally, when we look back at what we have explored about Stoic philosophy, we will realize that calmness and patience are not just essential qualities in life, but also the keys to manifesting everything you desire. Stoicism teaches us that things beyond our control are not worth worrying about, and it is in these moments of peace that we can truly recognize our inner strength. When you learn to maintain composure under pressure, you not only gain control over your emotions, but also create space for good things and your desires to naturally flourish in life. So, are you ready to apply this principle to your life? Are you willing to relax and allow good things to come to you as you keep your mind at peace? Or do you still have doubts that you can't let go of? A. Yes, I am ready to apply and trust in the power of calmness. B. No, I still worry about things beyond my control. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Keep watching the suggested videos at the end of this one to explore more Stoic philosophies that can help you enhance your life.